right. So I hope everyone is well. I just wanted to do a quick video about this concept of NPC. So this is something that I see quite a bit being talked about in the spiritual community. And an NPC is basically seen as a person on earth who is cut off from source. That's like what people are defining it as. The term NPC is just short form for non-player character. So people also believe that NPCs are, I've read, I just scratched myself. NPCs are totally like they're controlled by like the false matrix system. So it's this idea that they can't think for themselves. They're not able to have like a higher perspective on life. There's also theories that NPC are like around like 80 to 85% of the world. I think I've seen people, or I've heard people say that. And then the remainder 15% are people who are actually connected to source and are awake and all of that. So it's basically like the NPCs are like these kind of like soulless, sourceless soldiers. And then the rest are connected to source. So that's like the theory that is very popular right now. And so this is what I just kind of wanted to add on to that theory. So first of all, the idea of 85% of the world is totally soulless or sourceless is a very simplistic, kind of generalized way of looking at things. And the fact that the rest, the remaining like 15%, are connected to source. Yeah, that's a very like, it is overly simplistic, although I do think that there is some truth to it. And I actually do believe that there are people on this earth plane who are more, I guess, like at a lower level of development, but you could see it as them just being like beginner players in this particular game that we're in. So I'm just going to go over some types of NPC. And it is true that some traits of NPCs or non-player characters are this kind of inability to it's like this tendency is to kind of latch onto constructs that are presented. So one example could be a spiritual person who is NPC, because yes, spiritual, like NPCs, it's not like NPCs can't have a spiritual experience. They can actually have soulmates, they can like see ghosts, they can like, do all of that, which is kind of proof that they're like not totally outside of the like God's system. Like they're just a lot of them are just at a lower level, but I'll make that, I'll get more detailed with that when I go through the different types. But yeah, an example of kind of like attaching to a construct is people who see something on the news and, like, for example, like when that whole thing happened in 2020, there were people who kind of made that their identity, and they really like latched onto that as like, okay, this is like the new rules for life, and like that's it, end of story. There's no convincing them out of it. Another example would be really, really subscribing to a certain political party. So, and the people who will like literally die for that political party, they'll like everything that political party believes, they believe. Another example could be a non-player character who is really into spiritual stuff, and they like get like go really deep into it, and they start to like interact with demons and stuff, and then they get scared, but instead of kind of like trying to get like a higher perspective on it, they just like jump over to like extreme Christianity, and they just like totally like exit out. They're just like, no, I'm not like touching tarot cards anymore. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I think it varies for sure. Like, I'm not saying that everyone who is super Christian is NPC. I'm not saying that at all, because I think there's a lot of different factors that go into someone's decision to kind of really stick to a religion. And also there's like a season, there can be like a season in your life where like you really need to explore like a specific religion, basically. But so that's like a common trait of NPC. Another common trait of NPC I find is if it's, for example, a spiritual teacher who's NPC, they're likely to find a teaching and like kind of not really ever build on it, which is fine. And I think is like actually very useful, because we can't just have like all of these very like these more like high like thinkers who are constantly like giving these kind of spiritual theories and then making them so abstract that like the average person can't understand them. So I find like the NPC spiritual teachers, an example would be Eckhart Tolle, who he's like, he had a spiritual awakening and he has literally never strayed from his teaching, which is just to be in the now, which like that's very cool, right? It's very valuable. It's like more of a simple teaching, but it's, I would say it's very, very valuable. So, and then on the other hand, you have the more, I guess I would just say, spiritually developed teachers who are just, I guess, more ahead in the game, and they will tend to, their teaching is more about questioning things, constantly building, constantly and encouraging their followers to be curious about things and question things, like never finding a final answer. So yeah, so those are the differences actually that I find with their behaviors. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go over the 4 different types of NPC that I notice personally. There could be many others. Like the thing that I've learned with exploring all of this spiritual stuff is that every individual is such like a unique mix of all these different energies. So yeah, the first type, so these are all people on earth that I consider to be more functioning on like in just the earth realm. Some are actually cut off from source. I'm going to be honest. Some appear to be totally cut off. But yeah, so I'll just go over the types. So the first type that I sometimes see is an NPC person who their signature, it just looks entirely blank. So sometimes when I look at a person, I can see, oh, they're like connected to the fairies. They're like existing as this race in a higher plane. Or they're like an angel. They're whatever they may be within like this construct. I'm usually able to see it. With some people, there is just nothing there. There's literally nothing. And there are examples. I will link to a private video on my blog that shows some actual examples, but this is something that I don't like to show the general public because I don't believe that everyone is ready to know this kind of stuff. So I only save it for paid subscribers who have are able to have like a higher perspective on things maybe and are curious about these things. So yeah, there you go. Nothing is animating them. And this makes you, this just really makes you think, right? It could be that they're like a totally new soul who's like been here for the first time, who's been inside this construct for the first time. So yeah, that's something to think about because this is something real that I see. The second type of NPC that I see is people who are purely being animated by computer code. So it's not necessarily like a robot or anything, but it's just like zeros and ones. It's like just pure computer code. This to me could mean that they're being animated by like a computer program in like a higher dimension. It's, yeah, I know. It sounds super crazy, but so that's another example. And you know what? I'll probably have a blog post for this, just showing an example for each. And that'll be for my paid subscribers, I think. But yeah, I'm just letting you know of that type. Also, another type is people who appear to be connected to NPC star races. So these are star races that are, according to me, this is all just according to me, based on like my psychic vision, who are connected to star races in like the lower astral planes, who are cut off from source. And these NPC star races can incarnate into bodies here. I don't know how. But So yeah, so that's just kind of proof that even like NPCs on this level can have like a spiritual life and a spiritual experience because they're still connected to higher planes. Maybe like they're not like super high planes, but just like a couple levels up, sort of. Yeah. So okay. And in that blog post, I will put some actual examples. One example for me that is commonly a more like fallen or like astral level star race is the frog people. Not always, not like 100% of the time. I'm just saying it's very common. So, and then, all right, then the next one, the final one that I'm going to mention is NPCs who are connected to elementals. And when you think about what elementals actually are, they're like pieces of nature that have become animated and that have become conscious and that are turning into beings who have like their own like singular consciousness. So like they're not, it's not like this group consciousness anymore. Like they're like kind of, they're these beings who are being formed from leaves, water, air, all of that. So I find that it is common for NPCs to be connected to elementals and to be expressing that particular energy in this earth realm. So, okay. And I'll also put a couple examples of that in the blog post. So, hopefully, this showed you that not all NPCs are out to get you. I actually consider a lot of NPCs as just kind of being beginners in the game. And they don't really know. It's not their fault because they haven't been here long enough to get the opportunities to up level themselves basically and to have that higher perspective. This whole kind of rhetoric around NPCs are like out to get all the source players. It's like yes and no, depending. Yeah, depending on the who who is in the interaction. Like there are a lot of NPCs I actually don't mind at all, and I'm like happy to interact with. So it all depends as always. Okay. And that'll be it for this one. So if you would like to see some examples of like my like psychic vision of NPC, you can look at the blog post that I linked below. I don't think I have anything else about NPC, but yeah. Okay. Thank you for watching this, and I will talk to you later.